What if I told you that the biological clock does not exist? If you've been told that you need to have a baby because your biological clock is ticking, or have felt the pressure from this ticking clock, this video is for you. I'm about to share some insight that's going to help you throw that ticking clock right out the window. Let's dive in. Hello friends, today we are talking about the biological clock, which is one of the many topics that I am very passionate about, and this is why. Now, I want to be clear that I'm not talking about fertility decreasing as you age. What I'm focused on in this video is the so-called ticking clock that has confused, manipulated, and put pressure on women for decades. This biological clock has come to symbolize the sense of psychological pressure you may feel when you haven't had a child by a certain age. Before I move on, this topic is just a tiny slice of the pie of what we discuss in my program and private community, Is Child Free for Me? I just got this email this morning from my member Danny where she says, "You are helping me so incredibly much. To be honest, I don't know where I would be right now if I hadn't joined the program. My mental health would be completely jeopardized, but thanks to you and Rick, I'm navigating this process with light and love, and I'm getting more self-confident day by day." You can learn more about Is Child Free for Me in the link in the description below, but what I will tell you now is that every single member of my program is experiencing massive results. Okay, back to the biological clock. Okay, let's start with how this biological clock, as you and I know it, came to be. The term was originally coined by scientists to describe circadian rhythms, which are the processes that tell our bodies when we should wake up, when we should eat, and when we should sleep. So back in the 1950s, the Air Force began sponsoring research into how the biological clock worked. They were hypothesizing that if we understood the body well enough, we could overcome its limitations, like the need to sleep. So maybe the Air Force could operate on less rest. But in the 1970s and 80s, the meaning of the term shifted to the way we mainly use it now, which is a description of female fertility. Now remember that this is a time where the women's movement was really booming. Gender roles were shifting and women were working more and getting higher paying jobs. So here's what happened. I love telling the story. I tell it every chance I get because it's unbelievable that people don't know. But anyway, in the late 1970s, the Washington Post released an article by a man named Richard Cohen called "The Clock is Ticking for the Career Woman." In the article, he describes what he calls this composite woman, which is meant to be a representation of women between the ages of 27 to 35. In his article, this woman walks into lunch and she feels wonderful about her life. She has a new man, she's attractive, she loves her job, but then she confesses to him that she wants to have a baby. He ends the article by saying that for career women like this, there is always a feeling that the clock is ticking and that a decision will need to be made, a decision that will stick forever. This theme that the clock is ticking completely took off and became inescapable for women. Within months, this ticking clock was stalking career women everywhere, and not too much later, the Boston Globe also released an article saying that the ticking of the biological clock is getting louder and louder. This made-up ticking by Richard Cohen was used as proof that at the end of the day, women could not venture too far from their traditional roles. The messaging became very clear. Women were glamorized for having children while pursuing demanding careers, and women that were putting off having children were told that they would regret their decision later. The biological clock as we know it today is nothing more than a weapon to counteract the effects of women's liberation at the time. And here we are, still dealing with its effects facts. Rick and I get emails, DMs, and messages from women all over the world who are anxious or even in complete panic over this ticking clock. A few of my program members describe it as a ticking time bomb they felt would explode at any moment. My point of sharing this with you is because misinformation like this makes women feel less than or abnormal when it comes to making the choice to being child-free. If you feel pressure about this ticking clock, you can start letting it go by knowing that this was made up and purely psychological. It's yet another patriarchal attempt to make women feel like there is something wrong with them if they don't want kids. The psychological effects are an entirely different subject, but at the very least, I wanted you to know the truth about this imaginary clock. I'm just dipping my toe here into the vastness of conditioning, pronatalism, misinformation that has been drilled into our heads since day one. This is why I created my program as Child-Free For Me, because in the program, I hand over to you the exact information and actionable steps that I took to get to the empowered and confident place I am today. And I'm providing you with personal support along with support from a group of amazing women who are in your exact shoes. So if you're leaning towards a child-free life or have decided to be child-free, but there are things like this biological clock that are holding you back from feeling at peace, joyful, and confident, click the link in the description and let's chat. Thank you so much for listening and hanging out with me today. And if you want to dive further into why there is nothing wrong with you if you don't want to have kids, watch this video next where I explain why. We thank you, we appreciate you, and we're excited to see you next week.